Justin Bieber's name keeps coming up. Not because of a tour announcement, not because of new music, and not because of some comeback moment people have been waiting on. His name keeps surfacing in one of the darkest conversations circling Sean Diddy Combs. And the more he reappears in public, the more people start pulling up old clips, old interviews, old moments that once looked completely ordinary, and now feel like something else entirely. Some people believe Diddy has had reason to be nervous about Justin Bieber for a long time. Not because of what Justin has said publicly, but because of what he might one day choose to say. That fear alone is part of why this story keeps growing. Not because everything has been proven, but because too many old moments are starting to fit into a much larger picture. There is one interview that keeps getting shared, and hearing it today sounds nothing like it did the first time around. Back then, it read like a young pop star reflecting on the pressures of fame. A 21-year-old Justin Bieber offering advice to his younger self. Talking about growing up fast, about trusting the wrong people, about learning hard lessons in the industry. But now, with Diddy's name carrying the weight it does, those same words land completely differently. Justin talks about being 15 and innocent. He says he trusted everybody. He says that kind of openness in this industry is not always the best thing, because people take advantage of vulnerability. He talks about getting burned. About building walls. About shutting people out so completely that he eventually lost himself in the process. These are not throwaway comments. That is the language of someone who experienced real damage and is still trying to make sense of it years later. And once you hear him say that, one old piece of footage becomes impossible to ignore. The 48 Hours with Diddy clip. It has existed for years. For a long time, most people treated it as some kind of celebrity moment, industry bonding, a powerful man showing a teenage artist a good time. But when you stack that footage against Justin later talking about innocence, trust, and getting burned, the tone of that old clip shifts completely. It stops feeling lighthearted. It starts feeling uncomfortable in a way that is very hard to shake. That is also where the story expands beyond one relationship. Because once people started revisiting those early years, the concern stopped being only about Diddy. It became about the environment itself. The kind of world a 15-year-old Justin Bieber was dropped into. The kind of access older and far more powerful men had to him. The kind of normalizing that can happen when a teenager is surrounded by people who treat their discomfort like entertainment. And that discomfort was not always hidden. Some of Justin's most uncomfortable moments happened in public, on camera, while adults laughed and pushed and nobody in the room seemed particularly concerned with how young he was. He looked uneasy. He tried to redirect. He said things that, at the time, people brushed past. Now those same moments read like a teenager trying to hold a boundary that the adults around him had no interest in respecting. That point is what makes this story broader than just one allegation or one relationship. People are not only seeing a connection between Justin and Diddy anymore. They are seeing a pattern. A young artist, repeatedly placed in situations where his age and vulnerability were either ignored or treated as something casual. That does not make every person in those clips guilty of the same thing. But it does paint a picture of an industry culture where a kid's discomfort was regularly treated as something that did not need to be taken seriously. The names that keep coming up most in connection with Justin's early career are Diddy and Usher. That is also where the discussion becomes more serious, and where the difference between unverified speculation and demonstrated fact matters most. People keep circling back for a reason though. Justin's own reflections, his own words, the footage that already exists publicly, all of it keeps pointing toward the same early environment and raising the same uncomfortable questions about what was happening inside it. One detail that never stops drawing attention is the way certain moments were framed at the time. The language of access. The gifts. The little brother dynamic. The suggestion, captured on camera, that there were things Justin knew better than to talk about publicly. None of that is a legal conclusion. But when you line it up alongside everything else, it helps explain why Justin Bieber's name continues to sit so close to the center of this conversation even now. And then Diddy's legal situation shifts the weight of all of it again. News that his lawyers were pushing for a reduced sentence, taking the case to a federal appeals court and arguing that his conviction carried too harsh a penalty, immediately pulled all of those older questions back into the present tense. Because the moment there is any possibility of Diddy returning sooner than expected, every name already attached to this story stops feeling like history. It starts feeling current. For many people watching this unfold, the concern was never only about Diddy as an individual. It was about the system around him. The culture that allowed too much to go on for too long. The idea that one person facing consequences does not automatically fix the deeper problem. That is why the idea of redemption feels hollow to so many viewers. Not because they do not believe in it in principle, but because they feel the machinery that made all of this possible is still very much in place. Justin Bieber matters so much to this conversation because he is one of the few names that cuts through all of that noise. He was young. He was visible. His early years were documented constantly. And his own words, delivered in interviews years before any of this became a public scandal, already describe exactly the kind of harm people are now trying to understand. He talked about trusting everyone and getting burned. He talked about vulnerability being used against him. He talked about learning too late that the wrong environment can cost you more than you are prepared to give. Whether every allegation attached to those years is ever fully proven or not, that emotional core of his story is already there in his own voice. And that is why this narrative keeps coming back. Not because it has been resolved, but because it still feels unfinished. Because the people closest to that world have not yet said everything they know. And because for a lot of people watching, the biggest question was never just what happened. It was what comes next, and whether the full truth will ever actually come out. If you want to stay close to this story as it continues to develop, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think still needs to come to light? And if this video gave you something to think about, hit the like button. It helps more people find this content and keeps the conversation going.